is the news and talk of Texas. Now, it's the Rick Roberts Show on 820 AM, 99.5 FM, HD2, News Talk 820 WBAP.
Well, I know there's got to be a few 100 million more like me, just trying to keep it free. Yeah.
Rick Roberts starts right now.
And it's 3 minutes after the hour, 2:03 the time. Welcome, the Court of Public Opinion. Your voice, your opinion, your attitude on the issues of the day. We're with you each and every day, Monday through Friday from 2 to 5, your afternoon drive. Broadcasting out of Dallas-Fort Worth area. Of course, you can hear us all over the country. It's toll-free, 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. We got a lot of stuff to get to today, not the least of which, remember that kid that killed the black parishioners? Remember that? Killed 9 of them, I think, in South Carolina, was it?
Yeah.
Now, his sister was caught with weapons and drugs on school grounds yesterday during the National Walkout Day. We're going to get, I've got something to say about this. First her brother, now her. I'd like to meet the parents, to be quite honest with you, but we're going to get to that in a minute. First, red light cameras. It's been almost a year after the Dallas City Council approved a contract with a new vendor for red light cameras in the city. They voted 9-6 to enter a new 7-year deal with, it's out of Arizona someplace. It's an agreement could cost up to about $17 million. Not quite a year ago they did this. It's a new contract. It's going to reduce the total number of cameras deployed in the city from 60 to 40, I guess. I don't know if that's accurate or not. Red light cameras, you either love them or you hate them. I mean, I believe, if your car is doing 60 miles an hour and the light's red and I got a picture of you going through it, you need to pay up. They've done studies, and their studies are worth, I guess, the way they do them and how they're reviewed. But they show red light cameras reduce the number of people running red lights by 46%, almost 50%. That's enough for me. I've been hit in an intersection. Guy wasn't drunk. He was just speeding. And if you've ever driven on a highway in and around Dallas proper, you know what, like today, I don't know where these people are going. Guy comes up on me, swerves in front of me, and 60 miles an hour plus. I hit my brakes to keep from hitting him. He goes from my lane to the right lane, does the same thing to 2 cars up. I mean, it's like his hair was on fire or the cops were chasing him. Now, if he goes through a red light, somebody's going to get hurt. He doesn't care about red light cameras, obviously. Red light cameras aren't going to stop something like that. The guy's just an idiot wrapped in a moron. I mean, there's nothing you can do with that. But I think most people, I've hit my brakes, because can I make it? There's a camera. Don't want to mess with that. I mean, those fines can be pretty high. But I know there are other people. I don't like the vendors. They don't save lives. They're only, filling the municipalities, their coffers. Well, they may be, but the end result is more people stop a little sooner at red lights. Some people don't like that. I mean, you have habitual red light runners everywhere. Wherever they have to go takes precedent over your safety. I mean, you've seen that, right? You've seen it.
Yeah.
Have you ever received a red light ticket?
I never have. I don't like them, but I respect them.
David, which is out today, he's had several. Now, I don't know if he's just not watching it. Man, yesterday he was just railing. And by the way, have a safe trip, David. In any case, you either love them or you hate them. I think they tend, if anything, to get these morons behind the wheel a little more aware that, hey, this isn't your road. This isn't John Smith Road. You can go as fast as you want. I think they need to be reviewed. They need to be calibrated properly. All the X's and I's and T's crossed. That all needs to be done. But I think they're worthwhile. You've heard people gripe about them, though.
Oh, yeah. Do you remember when they very first came out with this? They were so touchy, the cameras were, that if you cross the white line, like even just to pull up to see,
right,
they'd take your picture.
Now, see, that's happened to me. That's happened to, I pulled up, maybe I was going, pretty quick. Oh, okay, all right, well, I'm not going to try to run the yellow. It's just red around the edges.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. But I just the front bumper of the truck, or maybe even the brush guard, goes over the line, and then you just sit there and snaps picture. Well, I'm not going anywhere, and I've fought that and won on that. But yeah, you're right. They were extremely touchy, and I think that's why people got a bad taste in their mouth to begin with. It was like, I get up in the morning and yawn, and a red light camera somewhere goes off.
Exactly.
But I think they've pretty well taken care of that, haven't they?
I think so.
Yeah. District 14 council member Kingston, I think his name was, he was pretty loud about his opposition of the red light program, which he called he called it scientifically disproved program. I don't know what that means, but his speech before the council drew applause, and some people stood up. Every peer reviewed the study. Look, it's technology that probably could be to the benefit or not to the benefit of the driving public. Personally, I don't have a problem. I just don't. I have more of a problem when you're headed down the highway and it's 65, then it goes to 75, and then all of a sudden it's 40, and then it's 60 again. I mean, what are you going to do? Watch the road or the speed limit signs? I mean, I get that. That's more of a problem for me. If you vote for it, you're voting to rob poor people. That's what Kingston said. If you vote for the red light camera program, you're voting to rob poor people. Why is that? Poor people don't have brakes on their car? Is that what that means? Well, see, if that's the case, I did not know that. Poor people don't have brakes on their car, and therefore they're going to be unduly affected by this. Other council members, they voiced their opposition to the deal since American Traffic Solutions didn't have any black contractors. Oh, Lord. The existing contract with the city of Dallas, expired, and they voted to extend it 7 more years. So let me do this. Let me step aside, and speaking of traffic, check the afternoon drive as it starts to get heated up out there, and then we'll take your calls. Red light cameras, do they help, or are they just money makers? We'll take your calls. 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. I'm Rick Roberts. This is the Court of Public Opinion, your opinion, on News Talk 820 WBAP. All right, 2:15 the time. Red light cameras. I know it's an argument. It's a vicious circle of dialogue over and over and over again. The studies show that it reduces people running red lights by about 46%. Other people say it's just a money maker for the city or the municipality, wherever it's located. Let's get to your calls. Let's go to Cheryl in Fort Worth. Cheryl, thanks for waiting. How you doing, Cheryl?
Howdy, I am doing great. The red light cameras are absolutely unconstitutional. They are anti-elderly, anti-disabled.
Wait, whoa, hang on a second. How are they anti-elderly?
Well, my father got a red light camera ticket here. I don't remember the exact timing, but probably in the last year or so. Only thing is, he had been dead for some time, and we had sold the car. Actually, it's probably a little longer than that. But anyway, he'd been dead for some time, and we had sold the car, and they had not re-registered the car like they were supposed to. And so my mother ended up getting the ticket, which sent to my
they send tickets to the registered owner, right?
Right. And so here is my dad's name was besmirched. And here's my mother, who was 90-plus years old at the time, and she would have to pay someone to take her to go fight it. And if you're elderly, and she was disabled too, because she was,
Okay. I understand, but that's not. that's not unconstitutional. You realize that, though, right? Hello?
You're innocent, and that is insane.
Okay, well, the constitutionality has already been tried in the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. I think, gosh, the 7th. Is it the 7th? Is that what? I think it was. It was
guilty until proven innocent. Is that right? Is that constitutional?
Okay, well, now
I'm not aware of that.
Well, you're coming at this from an emotional point of view. I'm trying to tell you the facts. The facts are that, yes, they're constitutional.
3 days of my time. Took 3 days of my
okay,
time.
Well, okay, but what does that have to do
my
with
mother had nothing to do with it.
It has nothing to do with it, Cheryl. Legally speaking, I know it's not fair. It's not fair, and it's probably upsetting, and I get why you're upset, but, you started the conversation saying it's unconstitutional. Well, it's not.
Absolutely is. It is. Absolutely is.
Okay, well, what argument would you make with the 7th? Okay, Cheryl, this is a conversation. I talked and you talked, and that way we can understand each other. What argument would you use to the 7th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, which ruled it is constitutional?
You're being charged with something that you didn't do, nobody put eyeballs on you to say that you did it. A car cannot commit a crime, but yet if you have any other car.
Okay, that's been tried. Okay, again, Cheryl, I get the emotion of it, but the argument that red light cameras violate the privacy of citizens has also been addressed in the U.S. courts, and it's found that, no, it doesn't violate. It's there. You can't run across the red light on your 2 feet and violate a red light camera law. I understand why you're upset, and you've got good reason to be, but you should fight it if that's the way you feel.
But see, why should somebody have to lose their job to go fight a
Okay,
ticket?
Nobody's going to lose their job after what you just told.
If they have to go take off work, if they have to go take off work, a poor person, if they have to go take off work, to go fool with the thing.
Okay, so you're telling me, Cheryl, that you went and told this same story to your employer and he fired you?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if somebody has to do that, they could lose their job.
No, they couldn't. They couldn't lose their job. There'd just be another lawsuit. You fired me for no good reason. Here's the story.
And a poor person has money to go file.
Okay, so now you're using No, I tell you what. If a poor person's running a red light, they are just as liable as a rich person running a light.
Sir, I've gotten 2 tickets running red lights that I did not run. I stopped absolutely, positively, 1,000%. Stopped at a brand new red light camera spot.
Well, then how did you get a ticket if you stopped?
Because the back end of the video, unless you knew that I had actually stopped, there's a speck of the bumper. You couldn't even really see it. It's a shadow of the bumper.
Okay, Cheryl, we're going to go around in circles here because this is obviously very important to you, and I can hear the emotion. I'm not slamming you. I'm just saying if you feel that strongly about it, you can find all kinds of people to do this pro bono. Won't cost you a dime. Every city has Mr. Ticket out there that specialize in stuff like this. And if that's the case, no, my car was not in the intersection when the light turned red. I mean, it's pretty hard to fight photographic evidence, isn't it?
Sir, you know what? When I went to go fight it on the one that said that I ran a red light, I knew absolutely positively that I had stopped. And in fact, when I talked to the administrative judge, I said, "Look at this. Can you see this? There's a car in front of me." She said, "Well, the only reason why you stopped is because there was a car, going across your path." I said, "Bingo." I mean, it's not that wasn't the reason why I stopped. I stopped because I stopped. But the fact of the matter is, I had to take my time to go to.
All right. Okay, you got to take your. I get that, Cheryl. That's the price we pay for living in a civilized society. And quite honestly, I bet you haven't been cited again, have you?
Actually, I have not again on that. Well, actually, I had something the other day that I didn't even see the stop sign, and started. But as soon as I saw it, I stopped. But unfortunately, I was partially into the intersection. But I just got a warning, thankfully. But
okay, you got a warning on that one when you ran us. Cheryl, look, just this is what I want to leave you with. First of all, don't say it's not constitutional, because it is. It's already been tried in the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. If you want to fight them, fight them. You know, I would encourage you if that's what you want to do. But if you've got photographic evidence of your car in the intersection when the light is red, it's really, really tough to fight unless the guy behind you hits you and pushes you into the intersection. Most of the problems that people have with red light cameras is that they're not calibrated properly. Cheryl, I'm sorry this happened to you. I hope it doesn't happen again. All right. Now let's get to David in Dallas. David, thanks for waiting. How you doing, David?
Yes. That went from the elderly to the poor to the she got 2 tickets.
You know what? I understand how people feel, and there's a lot of emotion. But, generally, the red light fights that are won is because of calibration, not because, I was just a little bit in the intersection. I mean, come on.
By the way, I'm one of those nasty truck drivers that you hate. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Hey, listen, I'm going to give it to the 18-wheelers yesterday. Driving on the interstate was a breeze because they were all in line. They were in the middle lane, but that's okay. I wouldn't want to, dodge the 4-wheelers that don't know what merge means. But they were all in a line. You could get around them. It was great.
As the Smith system training that I used to do and I also teach tells you, the lane of least resistance is not the starting lane, not the fast lane, but the middle lane.
Well, plus nobody knows what merge means, so go ahead.
Right. Now, the reason I was calling is there's 2 red light cameras sets in Fort Worth that you talk about calibration. They're on Alta Mesa in Calmont, and they're on Alta Mesa in Camp Bowie. Going to work one morning at 6:30, it's dark. I'm sitting there, and I pull up and stop. There's not a car in sight. Flick, flick. The opposite directions, they're taking pictures. And I'm going, what the heck is going on?
Right.
And they're constantly doing that. And during the day, if you're sitting there watching, no traffic's moving, and all of a sudden, flick, 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 the lights go off taking pictures.
Well, what was up? I mean, it was a malfunction, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's been that way. Those 2 sets of cameras have been that way for over a year that I'm aware of.
Well, I don't know why, because, that's Fort Worth. Dallas appropriated, $17.7 million? That seems like a lot. I don't know about Fort Worth, but sounds to me like somebody needs, get out their tool belt and go calibrate something.
Yeah, and the signs that are out there say, warning, red light camera ahead. The fine is $75, which is just enough to make you have to pay it versus fighting it.
Yeah. It can be, if you don't pay it, I guess in 30 days, it goes up $25. And then
I don't know. I don't run them, so I don't have to sit here and say, oh, it wasn't me. I wasn't in the intersection.
Right. Well, are you poor? Is that the problem? I mean, David, maybe.
No,
okay.
I can afford brakes.
All right. If you hit the brakes and all you hear is metal, then you may want to go, I don't know, the Midas or something. Look, here, you're right. I'm glad you said that. We even put up signs telling people that red light cameras are ahead. There's no reason to run them, whether you like them, whether you don't.
One last quick comment. I just thought about this. About 5 or 6 years ago, I got a letter in the mail that I had a red light camera, and the picture was the back of a UPS truck, not my little truck, and it was a typo error that I called the state and said, this is not me. I don't live in Houston. I can prove everything, and the lady's like, oh, yeah, I can tell it's a typo error. Don't worry about it. To this day, that letter sits at home on my desk just to be careful. Just
in case. 2:26 the time. All right, red light cameras. Are they lifesavers? Do they make you think? When you see the sign, red light cameras, of course, you start looking around, right? But do you slow down? I'm betting most of you do. Do they help traffic? Do they save lives, or are they just moneymakers? 2:26 the time. I'm Rick Roberts. Eric Bushman in the WBAP newsroom. He's next. Then your calls on News Talk 820 WBAP. 2:34 the time. I'm Rick Roberts. This is the Court of Public Opinion. Don't have to worry about running any red lights here. Red light cameras, it came up in conversation a couple days ago, and I've not received a red light. I did get a clicker ticket in California. Just pulled out. Of course, the station there, as you know, it's a secure parking lot, and you have to have codes to get in and codes to get out. And I was on the phone, and I wasn't driving. It was my own fault. So I pulled out of the parking lot. I mean, just as soon as I pull out of the driveway, I get lit up, and it was a motorcycle cop, and he goes, "Man, I'm giving a ticket to Rick Roberts. This is great." No, okay, thank you. I mean, I shouldn't have been on the phone at the same time I was trying to prepare to. What are you laughing at, Lee?
He wasn't worried about being on the radio the next day.
No, he was a good guy. He was a good guy. Did his job. Let's go to Zena. Is that her name? Zena? Zena in Grand Prairie. Zena, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Zena?
I'm doing great. Thanks for taking my call.
What's going on?
I just wanted to call in. I used to be the manager over the red light running program for the city of Dallas. And,
hold on. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the woman you should be mad at. No, I'm kidding. When you say you were over the red lights for Dallas, what does that job entail exactly?
Well, basically, we had it was sourced out, so we had a vendor who basically processed all of the, I guess they would send the notices for collections and things like that. But then what we kept in-house was the actual enforcement of it. Now, of course, the vendor maintained the cameras, and as far as maintenance,
right,
and installation, but once they grabbed once the cameras took the pictures and the video, they would put them up in a web area, a location online, and our employees would go online and into the queuing area and just review them. And basically, at that point, they had the option of either pushing the button, so to speak, and issuing the citation or not.
Okay, well, that's interesting because the review process, a lot of people probably don't know what that is. I don't. When you say you review it, what is it you're looking for specifically?
Well, we have different criteria for different issues, but let me start. Well, first of all, there are certain state laws that require us to have certain things in place. One of them is there has to be a sign, like a warning sign, that has to be posted a certain amount of feet before the intersection.
Well, I would assume, forgive me for jumping in, I would assume if this was just a money grab, if all it was money, you wouldn't advertise that the camera's there. You'd want as many people running that light as possible to get more money.
Well, sure you would, but again, in order for us to be in line with the law, we had to make sure that the posted signs were posted, indicating that there is a red light running camera there. And once that happens, then the next thing we look at is, well, we first assure that the sign is there, and then what we do is make sure that there's no construction going on. If we can see that there's some kind of construction going on, because sometimes that can play into it, so we don't issue the ticket if we can see some visible construction going on.
Right.
But what we want to make sure is that the rear end of the tires, the back end of the tires, has passed the stop bar, and if they have passed the stop bar and the light is red, then they issue the citation. And
okay, well, you heard the woman just a moment ago say that what was it, Lee? Just a fraction of her vehicle was over the white line, but she had stopped. Would you give a ticket in that case?
If they have come to, because I know this happens a lot, people will the light will turn yellow, and a lot of people will speed up a little bit. And if they get caught in the street, and again, if this is in Dallas, I can only tell you about what we went by.
Right.
If they just slam on their brakes and just slide past the stop bar but they have stopped. They have made a stop. We won't issue it.
Even if the front bumper is over the white line?
Yep. If they made a conscientious effort to stop.
Okay, but how do you?
no.
Okay. I'm not picking at you. I'm just trying to pick your brain. How do you know that they made a concert? Okay, even if that front bumper is over the white line, you don't issue tickets.
Not if they stopped.
Well, okay. So if the car is moving, you issue a ticket. But if you could tell by photographic evidence that the car was stopped. You don't issue a ticket. Okay, all right. Well, that makes sense.
Right.
Okay,
right. Now,
so,
and that's more of a given. We give that to them because we don't know the circumstances if there was something in the street that made them slide or whatever. So that's a given there.
Okay. Well, what are the biggest complaints? I'm really glad you called. This is the person that was formerly over the red light cameras in Dallas.
Right.
What were the biggest complaint? Did you hear the first caller? First it was was unconstitutional. It was all of that. Well, it's been proven constitutional, unless I'm mistaken. I think it has.
Right, in the civil court, so it's civilly constitutional.
Right. I think it was the 7th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals that found it constitutional. But, the constitutionality, obviously there's a lot of emotion that goes on with red light cameras. Because sometimes what's real and what is perceived are two diametrically opposed things. What's the biggest complaint from drivers you got?
Well, the biggest complaint from drivers are what I noticed was the red light running. The right turn on red.
Right.
We would get because that's all an issue too. Some vehicles, in people's minds, because they repetitively do, turn right at a certain location, they just assume they stopped. But in the pictures, they'll look at the pictures and they'll say, well, look, I'm stopped. Well, of course, in a still photo, you're stopped. But then we tell them, go on to the site. There is a video that you can see yourself in the video, and they'll see, oh, my car did slow really, 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 really slow, but, they call the California
stop. Yeah.
Yeah. There is still a roll. The tires are still rotating.
Yeah, red light, turning right on red after stop means you can turn right on a red light after you stop.
Right.
And a lot of people just I'm guilty of that too. You get in the habit of turning right on red at a specific location and you do a California stop. A California stop just simply means you don't really stop all the way. You're not traveling at any noticeable speed. You just kind of roll through it. Right. I can see that. A lot of people probably perceive that. Well, was it a good job, or did anybody ever say thank you for the red lights?
Yeah, we did. We would have annual, I want to say it was there was a week in August of every year we had our red light running awareness week, and we would get together with MAD and other programs, Moms Against Drunk Drivers, but they were also, because a lot of times, one of the biggest reasons behind this push was...
Zena, I tell you what, Lee, go to Zena real quick. I've got... one more question to ask her, and it's an important question, and I don't want to cut her off, but I got to step aside. Zena, hang on for just a second, if you will. Let's check your afternoon drive on News Talk 820 WBAP. All right, 2:47 the time. Red light cameras, do they save lives? Do they increase safety at an intersection, or are they just simply a way for the municipalities to make a buck? I brought this up, and Zena called in on the talk line. She oversaw the red light cameras for the city of Dallas. And Zena, thank you very much for hanging on. I appreciate it. I mean, I know the legalities of this, but you were right there in the trenches for a long time. What about this? I know you have to send the ticket to the registered owner. That just makes sense. But what about if somebody got rid of a car, gave it away, sold it, whatever, and the person never changed the registration, and so the former owner got the ticket? How do they fight that?
Oh, that's pretty simple. I mean, all they have to do is appeal it with the administration court, and it's called the adjudication office. And I know that one lady got upset about losing their job if they had to show up for court. That you can do it by mail, you can do it by phone, but you just contact them. If you send them your information, like a bill of sale showing when you sold the car, even though the other person didn't do their part and register it in their own name.
Right.
That's all you need to do is show them proof of a bill of sale, and they will take the citation off of your name, and they'll try to do their due diligence and look for the new owner's information.
Yeah, but as long as you get rid of the ticket, that's. Well, I guess you'd like them to change the registrations if they have a habit of running red lights. Okay, at the end of the day, when the dust settles, do they work? Do they do what they're supposed to do? Or is the perception that they're just a money grab, does that hold some truth to it?
It's both. But again, when I retired from the police department, the rate of T-bone accidents had decreased by 22%. And those are the most fatal and the worst fatalities and injury type of accidents. So they had, other than a head-on, so those had definitely decreased by 22%. Now, is it a revenue maker? Well, of course, it made a lot of revenue, but according to state law, this money, the revenue that's made from it, has to turn around and be used and absorbed back into the program.
Oh, okay. So it's self-funding then.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I saw a statistic, because this came up a couple of days ago, and I think Dallas has a contract with this new company until, 2024 or something?
I believe so. That all happened after I retired January of last year. So, yeah, I believe it did, but I'm not familiar with the new company.
Yeah, it cited that it reduced red light running by 46%. That seems feasible to me. If you see a sign, red light camera, then obviously you're not going to, put the gas to the floor and try to run it. That doesn't make sense. So overall, good program, bad program. Maybe that's not the right question to ask somebody that was involved with it, but, stepping back now, from a law enforcement standpoint, is it a good program?
I think so. And I've been, just as guilty as anybody else as getting one of those tickets. And, I have to say, yes, I did run the red light and I paid my ticket, but I do understand what could have happened if there was another car coming.
Yeah, I drive trucks primarily, not all the time, but primarily. So I was lucky enough to be in a big truck and got T-boned. And the guy wasn't drunk. He just wasn't paying attention. He was probably on his phone. So, and it was a red light intersection. So you got everything right there. So it made the insurance a lot easier. Zena, thank you for sticking around. I appreciate it very much.
No problem. And you guys have a great day.
All right. You do the same. Thank you so much. All right. That's Zena. She used to be over the red light cameras in Dallas. Want to take your calls. Let's go to Larry in Terrell, Texas. Larry, thanks for waiting. I appreciate it. How you doing, Larry?
I'm doing well. Thanks for taking my call, Rick. This subject hit enough to where I wanted to call in, and Zena, she had some good insight. Let me tell you, I'm an adjuster for automobiles and been in this business for 25 years.
Larry, I can just barely hear you. Are you on speaker, maybe?
Well, there you go, Rick. How's that?
Okay, we'll try with this.
I can take this off. I'm so sorry, Rick.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I just want people to be able to hear what you have to say.
Is that better?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. No, I've been doing this for 25 years, adjusting car accidents. I did get a ticket with a red light camera about 10 or 12 years ago in Garland. Is the only one I got. And I'll tell you, I got the ticket in the mail, and it says, we want to inform you that you were doing 45 in a 45 zone, and the red light had activated 0.20 seconds. So that's 2/10 of a second. But the thing was, I had a 18-wheeler behind me, and my dad's a truck driver, my brother's a truck driver. He could be carrying 50,000 pounds. They can't stop in 1.4 seconds. I continued on through because it turned yellow right when I crossed the line. That was the safest thing to do. I'm not saying I'm 100% against the red light cameras, but I lean towards not having them because it brings people's blood pressure up. They may hit the gas. They may slam on the brakes. What Xena brought forward was good. The 22% of T-bones are down. T-bones are, I mean, they can cause some damage to a person if they're hit on the driver's side. But I'm on the fence on it, Rick.
Yeah, you know, I've talked to a lot of people about this, and they say, well, I shouldn't have to deal with this. It's my right to drive. No, it's not a right. It's a privilege, but it's not a right. And, you know, if in fact you see a sign that says red light or whatever the sign says, I don't know, and it causes you such physical incapacitation, if that's a word, then maybe you probably shouldn't be driving anyway.
Well, you've got a very valid point. Very valid.
I mean, in other words, if I see a sign while I'm driving and it causes such a physical reaction in me that I either slam on the brakes or slam on the gas or, you know, I just kind of lose it for a minute, then I would have to question my ability to be driving anyway.
Let me rephrase this one more time. You've got a very valid point, and the younger drivers, and I'm not pressing every young driver, but again, I look 5 to 10 wrecks a day. That's my job.
Right.
You know, cell phones.
Well, I tell you what, hang on just a second, because I don't want to cut you off. I think you've got some valuable information to impart, but I don't want to cut you off. This is Larry. I'll tell you what, he you know, looks at these wrecks every day. And he says he's kind of on the fence, sees both sides of it. I want to complete his call when we come back. Eric Bushman standing by in the WBAP newsroom, very latest breaking news. And we will also check your afternoon drive. All right, we'll do that next.
This is the news and talk of Texas. Now, it's the Rick Roberts Show on 820 AM, 99.5 FM, HD2, News Talk 820, WBAP.
Well, I know there's got to be a few 100 million more like me, just trying to keep it free. Yeah.
Rick Roberts starts right now.
All right, 3:05 the time. I was talking with Larry. Larry, please tell people what you do for a living when it comes to vehicles.
Yes, Rick. I'm an independent auto adjuster. I estimate and evaluate damage to vehicles. It's what I've done for over 20 years now.
Okay. Now, you are saying you see both sides of it. I mean, a T-bone in an intersection, especially on a driver's side, is probably one of the most serious accidents you can have, I would think, right?
Correct. For both the person getting T-bone and obviously the one doing the T-bone, depending on what they're hitting. I mean, that could be damaging to the person as well, depending on the type of vehicle.
Now, you know, the legality, the 7th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, they ruled that it was, they held that issuing citations to vehicle owners, or I guess lessees, is in fact constitutional. The argument that red light cameras violate the privacy of citizens, that's been held up as well. But a lot of people are still under the impression they're not constitutional. Well, you know, I guess if you want to go before the 7th U.S. Circuit Court, you could make that argument. But, you know, if they've found that it's constitutional, if I just talked to the lady that oversaw the program in Dallas for a number of years, she's even gotten a red light ticket herself. Do you see any benefit to them?
You know, the constitutionality part of it, I don't have an argument with that. I do believe that that's probably correct. However, Xena made a good point, your caller earlier. when you had asked her, is it a money grab, or is it to really reduce accidents at red lights? And she said both.
Right.
And to be, not to be without a heart by saying this, but the city really, I don't want to say they don't care, but they don't care if you get in a wreck. I mean, I'm not saying they're heartless people, but it's all about the money and the numbers. And, if it was truly about saving people or reducing injuries and things of that nature, there maybe could be other forms of people not protruding or going through a red light. It has to do with money, and that's where a problem is. Like I said, I'll let you go after this, but that red light that I ran, when that 52,000-pound truck is behind me on my rear, I'm not going to slam the brakes. When I saw it, it turned yellow and red pretty quickly. It was a long time ago. It was 12 years ago. There's nobody coming the other way. I proceeded within 1 or 2/10 of 1 second, or else I could have possibly been rear-ended, because that truck cannot make that stop that quick. He was you've got a personal anecdote that certainly needs to be looked at. I don't know whether the 1 second or a second and a half is accurate. I don't have those figures, but I would think that you could go before an administrative judge and say this is what happened. If it's true, they reduce red light running by 46%. It's a money deal. Money goes back into the program, so it's self-funding. It's not as though it goes into some slush fund to pay off politicians. I guess what I'm looking at is if it helps, fine. I totally understand, and that's where I'm on the fence with it. It's something that we'll just have to deal with. I don't see it going away, because the money is in the system, and the cities do generate money for it, and that's great. That's fine. I paid my ticket. I couldn't argue the fact there was a truck behind me. It's not in the photograph of my rear license plate, and I didn't want to take the time to argue it.
Well, as far as generating money, of course it does. It has to, because there's got to be some penalty to keep people from running the red light. If there was no money involved, then really it wouldn't be worth putting up the cameras, because people continue to run red lights like they do. Listen, Larry, I appreciate you sticking around, giving us the insight to what you do. I appreciate it very much. Let's I tell you what, let me step aside very quickly, because, he said something that brought something to mind. These things have to be calibrated. That was a big fight in Southern California. The yellows are calibrated, and the city is somehow making them shorter so they can generate more money from the red lights because the yellow is shorter. Well, as far as I'm aware, they have to be calibrated to certain standards. They don't, we need more money over here in this little town, so let's make our yellow light shorter. That's in stone. I don't think the municipality has any control over that. Let's go. I tell you what, let's check your afternoon drive, and I'll come right back to your calls on, have you got a red light camera? Have you got one of those tickets? I was just walking down the hall after that last segment, and I talked to somebody that's got a couple of them in the last couple weeks. And I won't say whether it's a he or she, but they swear they came to a stop. I haven't talked to anybody that's got a red light ticket that said, yeah, I was guilty, I ran it. I mean, the perception is we always stop for red lights. All right, now watch. I'll get a red light ticket on the way home. 3:11 the time. Your calls straight ahead. All right, 16 minutes after the hour. Red light cameras, do they increase safety at intersections? Do they save lives, or is it just a money grab by the individual city? Let's go to Mark in Dallas. Mark, thanks for waiting. I appreciate it. How you doing, Mark?
Doing great, Mr. Roberts. Real honored to talk to you.
Thank you.
My one and only concern when it comes to red light cameras is, where do we draw the line? Once we open that door, it can become a Pandora's box. Could we have speed check cameras? That'll lower speeding. Active viewing to catch every person doesn't change their lane on the highway. Where does the line get drawn? Because I think it's just a slippery slope you can head down. Once you say it's okay here, the long-term potential is too great, in my opinion.
Well, the speed trap cameras that you're talking about, those have been shut down just about everywhere. I'm not sure if there's any still up or not. Because go ahead.
I'm sorry. My point being is always, why aren't those okay then? If one's okay to keep us in check, why not the other? That's what I'm saying is, where do we draw the line? How far do we allow it to go?
Well, I mean, if you go to Europe, there's a camera about every 10 feet. Which is good if there's a crime, because they can usually pick the guy out. But most people don't like it because they say, well, it's infringing on my privacy. Well, constitutionally it isn't, but I understand why people feel that way. The red light cameras, as long as nobody messes with them, because quite honestly, they can be manipulated to make money. But if you got what is the standard for yellow lights, I think is 3.5 or 4 seconds, and they found in some cases, they found in Dallas, as a matter of fact, that they had shortened the yellow to 3.15 seconds. Well, that's 0.35 seconds difference, and if you're driving so fast or so reckless that 0.35 tenths of a second is going to make the difference between a ticket or not, that to me is a bigger problem than a red or a yellow light going from 3.5 to 3.15 seconds. If it helps, that's fine. I mean, there's a slippery slope scenario for just about everything. But as the world goes, and I've traveled extensively on business, I mean, people in America leave you alone because we demand it. I as far as the red light cameras go, it all goes back to calibration. They did an investigation. They found that of the 10 cameras, and this is in Dallas, that issued the greatest number of tickets in the city, 7 were located at intersections where the yellow duration is shorter than the bare minimum, but it's 0.3 of a second shorter. And like I said, if you're on the razor's edge of 0.3 of a second, getting a ticket or not, that speaks to me more about the driving than it does about the yellow light. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Exactly. But that 0.3 means something to me.
Well, yeah, that's because you drive 90 miles an hour everywhere.
That's true.
Yeah. All right, Mark, a pleasure to talk to you. I hope you call again. Bill in Tucson, Arizona. Bill, it is Bill. Bill, thanks for waiting.
Hello, Rick. Actually, I'm in Plano visiting family. Lived in Tucson, though, since 1990. Born here in Dallas, though. Big D.
Well, glad to have you back.
Well, thank you. Glad to be back visiting family. Rick, the thing of it is 2 aspects. About representation, that's one thing, but we have a gargantuan intersection at River and Oracle in Tucson. There's 3 lanes plus an additional left turn lane on each side of the road. Now, twice I have had to commute through that or else go all the way around, long detour.
Right.
And when going, the car behind me or 2 cars behind me, because of that precious 0.31 second difference or whatever it is, the flash should go off after nighttime. And my vision is okay. It's not exceptional, but it's pretty good. I make a 1,000-mile drive between here and Tucson, and no problem, thankfully, yet. But when I do it and the flashes go off, it's like being at Grauman's Chinese Theater. You're going to get your hands into the cement, and all the flashes are going off at once. And for me, it is totally blinding for about half a second. And there were a number of people who made the same complaint, and thankfully, Tucson has abandoned them.
Right. Well, a lot of people have.
Oh, have they really? Elsewhere too?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they have. I mean, it was a big deal here in Texas. The North Texas attorney has argued the legality, and we've had probably 10 people argue for getting rid of them. As a matter of fact, we're probably more people arguing to get rid of them than to keep them. But unfortunately, the city council voted to keep them for 7 more years. So I think that brings us into 2024, something like that.
Oh, I see. Yes. Okay. Well, see, that's the thing. Also in Tucson, I don't know who the vendor is here, but actually the company running it is located in somewhere at or near Sydney, Australia. So would give.
Are you talking about it in Tempe?
Tucson, Arizona.
Well, the old vendor for Dallas, believe it or not, was out of Tempe, Arizona, and I'm not sure where the new one is. But no, look, there are I think there's probably more people against them than for them, and quite honestly, I don't lay awake at night thinking about it. But when that many people just pour out and say no, we don't want them, well. What I ask, what was the accident percentage at this intersection? What was the red light? And how many of those people had accidents because of running red lights? Now, do you have stats on what's changed? And so far, we just had the lady on that ran the red light or oversaw the red light program in Dallas. She said it stopped T-bone accidents in intersections by about, what'd she say, 22%, I think. And the stats for stopping red light running was about 46%. So, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know. There's just not anywhere I need to be that quick. I try to leave for work at a decent time. There have been some times when I get caught in traffic jams and get behind and try to speed up, but I'm just not going anywhere that quickly. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
It does. I'm notorious at running late, so I'm always speeding. And yes, I admitted that.
Bill from Tucson, it's good to have you back in Dallas. Watch out for the red light cameras because we've got them for, I guess, the next 6 years. I don't know. To me, I'm just not in that big a hurry. I used to be. I'll be honest with you. I traded in my Volkswagen bus for a 67 GT350 Shelby Mustang. Got about 5 miles to the gallon, and that meant I needed to stop for gas about every 3 blocks. And yes, I was horrible. I was speeding all the time. And I just got to the point where, it's just not worth it. I've had friends die in car wrecks, and it just didn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It just, hold up. We're all going to get there at some point. It's sort of like walking down, where you check in for your I used to fly every about 12 to 17 days. And it never ceased to amaze me. There'd always be some guy in a suit and tie, and he was flustered and sweating, and he's got his bag over and he was like pushing old ladies on walkers out of the way to go down that jetway. You know what, the jetway? That's where the lady is, and they open the door and you walk down and inside the plane. And it was finally one day, this guy literally, there's this lady, and it wasn't a walker, but she had a cane, one of those canes that has the big foot on it. And she's walking in, and he's trying to get around her to get down there. And I told him, I said, partner, this plane's not leaving till every butt's in the seat. This is not, first come, first serve. You got a ticket, got a seat designation. Now, I'm pretty sure she's not going to grab your seat. Plane's not going anywhere till everybody's on it. I don't know. My mindset just kind of flipped one day. And maybe it's from flying so much. I don't know. 3:26 the time. Your calls straight ahead, unless, of course, you're running a red light, and in which case, get off your phone and watch what you're doing. All right, at 3:33 the time. Man. Lee, I think I may stand out as the talk show host with the most red light ticket runners. I don't know. I haven't got one yet. Somebody said, well, you don't have to pay the ticket if you don't want to. No, but it's probably something you don't want to deal with. And they can refuse if they want to register your vehicle if you've got an outstanding ticket. And eventually it goes to collection. And eventually you're going to get the, you're not going to get it on your record, your driving record, but you're probably going to get the collection on your credit report. Nobody wants that. All right. Let's go to Brian in Dallas. Brian, you've been very patient. I appreciate it. How you doing, Brian?
Good. Thanks for taking my call, Rick. Some of what you said was true. I don't know the exact stats, but around 80 to 90% of all these are non-complete stop right turn on reds. Partially what you said is true, but what's going to happen is you're going to get a ticket for $75 if you don't pay within 60 days. Now, this is from my lawyer friend, and I went and did my own research too, and I urge everybody to go out there and do their own research. So what's going to happen is they'll submit a fine, $25 on top of the $100.
Right.
But they cannot compel you to pay that, and they do not have the legal authorization or the teeth to put a hold on your registration.
Okay,
Even though some counties say that they will, they can't do that.
Okay, well, it has been done. It has been done. If you try to register the vehicle that was identified in the red light camera ticket, it's called a scofflaw. Is that how you pronounce it? Scofflaw. They can refuse to register that vehicle. I don't know why they would, because the money you're paying for the registration goes to them. As far as paying it, no, they can't issue a warrant for your arrest. But, I mean, why would you want a collection agency to call you and put that on your credit report?
Well, now, the credit report, there may be some truth to that, but I have a buddy who's gotten several of these. He hasn't paid them in 6 or 7 years, and I confirmed it with my attorney. I don't know personally the law that you're citing, but they don't do that.
Well,
I've never heard of anybody being refused a registration because of this.
Look it up. That's all I can tell you. And I've talked to people, and yes, you can ignore it. Don't pay it if you want to. After 30, 60 days, whatever it is, they add another 25 to the 75. But if you don't pay it, they just send it to a collection agency. And a lot of people are more worried about their credit report than they are the driving report.
That could be true. I'm not one of those people, though, and I don't think that they will block your registration for this. So I'll do some more research. But from everything that I've read, they don't.
Check it out because, like I said, in Dallas, they had a situation where the yellow light was shortened by 0.3 of 1 second. It went from 3.5 or 4 seconds, whatever it was, to 3.15 seconds. And a lot of people got, they got some relief with that. But by the same token, yeah, I mean, I'd rather pay the 75 than deal with a collection agency. But then again, calibration is everything. We've fought this when I was broadcasting out of Southern California. It had Mr. Ticket, and guaranteeing you could get anybody out of a ticket. Well, the fact is that you didn't have to pay it there either. But what are you going to do when the collection people start calling? It's just not worth the hassle. But the first thing you should ask for is the calibration records, just like on gasoline. That's something that goes by and people don't even notice it. Well, it's $2.39 a gallon. That's a good deal. Well, you got $20. Did you get the $2.39 per gallon? Or is it off by 10 cents every 10 gallons? That adds up, quite honestly. That's why they're calibrated. They have people that come around and inspect those gas tanks at different gas stations to make sure they're calibrated properly. Red light cameras should be no different. As a matter of fact, I don't think they are. I think that I would ask for the calibration. How long was the yellow light? Well, you may be right, too, on the red light, right on red. Right on red, and I'm guilty of this. It's at one spot. I always turn right on red, but do I come to a complete stop, or does it just feel like I'm coming to a complete stop? It's known as a California stop, and if you've ever been in California, you know what that means. You don't come to a complete stop, but you're just barely moving. All right? Well, that's illegal. Ask me, it's kind of silly. But if, your wheel is turning, then it's against the law. But they didn't ask me when they came up with the laws. Brian, good call. Check that out by the registration. Because that to me was kind of a bigger deal than anything else. It just, and cities have been caught manipulating the yellow light. Dallas was one of them. I just I don't go for that. I really don't. All right, let's go to Mike. Mike, where are you calling from, Mike?
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking my call, Mr. Roberts. I'm in North Richland Hills.
Okay.
And I got to tell you, I just came in on this conversation, and I really enjoy your radio show. I think it's the best one on the air, and I wish some others would take lessons from you, including the gentleman that in the time slot afterwards on this station, which we won't mention any names. But moving right along, he said, I have a mega problem with red light cameras because I feel they're unconstitutional. I feel that on a red light camera, you are presumed guilty until you can prove your innocence. Men and women have gone to war in this country and have given them their lives to preserve our Constitution, which very clearly has the concept of innocence until guilt is proven by a preponderance of the evidence. And my wife and I actually witnessed this in North Richland Hills at an intersection that had a red light camera on Highway 26. The light turned yellow. We came to a stop, and there was a gentleman in the left turn lane that continued through the light and got flashed. He was obviously wearing a mechanic's shirt and a mechanic's hat, you know, the striped shirt that has the name thing on it. And he pulled immediately into a shop that was on that corner, an auto shop, and pulled right into the bay. And the first thing that I said to my wife was, what if he, just getting flashed, was driving a client's car? The client is going to get the notification of the red light violation. The client's going to have to go into court and prove his or her innocence. And, of course, they're not. Some cameras don't have the facial shot. All they're going to see is the back end of the car going through, and they're not going to be able to tell if it's a man or a woman or whatever. And they're going to say, this car ran a red light, you're the owner, you're guilty. And you know what? In my opinion, and my opinion is never to be humble, is that that's unconstitutional because now you have to take time off work and go into court and prove your innocence.
Well, actually, I talked to, what was her name? Zena? Zena. She retired in January of this year from overseeing the red light camera program in Dallas. And that question was brought up. Some lady said it's not fair to the poor. It's not fair to, the elderly. It's not fair that she could get fired if she has to take off for work. And according to Zena, the person that oversees or oversaw the red light camera program, you don't have to go to court. You have to contact the administrative judge. You can do that by mail, by email, or by phone. And basically say, look, I sold this car, and all you have to do is provide a bill of sale or something of that nature. She said there's no reason for people to go to court on this.
Okay, well, all right, so they don't have to go to court, but they still have to take some actions. They have to do some things to prove that, A, they don't own the vehicle anymore, B, they weren't driving it at that time, they were out of state or something. They have to do something to explain away where, as opposed to the innocence is being presumed, here the guilt is being presumed. And you know what? I see your point, and I also, that we have a daughter, and people have said to me, well, what if your daughter, God forbid, had been killed by somebody running a red light? And there, you know what? There's merit to that, but in my mind, there are other ways to enforce laws and regulations and what have you than something like this where you're presumed guilty until you can prove innocence. It's just fingernails on a chalkboard to me.
Oh,
but,
I know. And there are a ton of people, Mike, that feel just like you feel. You know, with the advent of technology and with, so many people driving so recklessly and speeding, you can't have a police officer on every intersection. That's not doable. I mean, we're, 800 police officers short in Dallas alone. You try to use the technology to the best of your ability. And you're right. You run a red light, the camera takes your picture. They can't put out a warrant for you. You don't have to pay it, but it's going to go to a collection agency sooner or later. You don't want that on your credit report, and certainly don't want those collection calls. And there are tons of attorneys out there that are willing, for $1 or $2 to beat the ticket. $1 or $2 is an underestimate, obviously. It to me, it just, I don't know. Do the positives outweigh the negatives? All right, 3:48 the time. Red light cameras, do they help where safety is concerned? Do they reduce the number of people running red lights? Do they reduce accidents? Or are they just simply a money grab, a way for the city to get in your pocket? Talked with the woman that oversaw the Dallas program, and she said, well, really, it's probably a little of both. And she's probably right. If I see a sign, at the end of the day, if they really wanted to get in your pocket, they wouldn't put a sign up that said, warning, red light camera ahead. Why would they do that if all they care about is the money? I don't know, you just have to think with some linear thought to this. Legally, we've gone through all of that, but, this red light cameras just hit at the emotion of drivers. Drivers change dramatically when they get in the car, roll up the window, turn on the AC, turn on the radio, and take off. They become different people. I probably do too. All right, let's go to Kelly in Arlington. Kelly, thank you for waiting. Let me find her. There she is. Thank you, Kelly.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Listen, about 6 different friends of mine texted me or tried to call me and say, hey, get on WBAP. You're going to like this. And I'm like, okay. So I've been listening for like the last half hour, and you've got a few, I love that you're covering this. You've got a few inconsistencies in the law that I'd maybe like to share with you a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, it is against the law to put any of these unpaid tickets on anyone's credit record. And I can actually cite you chapter and verse if you'd like.
But no, how do they send it to a collection agency and that not show up on your credit report?
Well, here's the thing. What they're doing is let's say you don't pay your red light, you smartly don't pay your red light camera ticket. About 30 to 60 days later, you get a late notice from this San Antonio law firm.
Okay.
And the San Antonio law firm is playing like, the mob boss of the city.
Oh, what are they? A collection agency using some type of legal moniker?
It's not really a collection agency. It's the same law firm in San Antonio, all over Texas, one law firm. And apparently this law firm is contracted with the camera company, and they send out these late notices, right? And these late notices say that you might get your ticket reported to a collection agency, but what they're doing is that is very deceptive, and we've tried to call them on that 100,000 times. And what people need to know is what the law actually says. And so if they were to look in statute 707 and go to, hang on a second, I can just look at this real quick. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, state statute 707.003, subparagraph H, as in Harry. Go there. Look at it yourself. There is the state law says you cannot report any unpaid civil violations to a credit bureau, period.
Okay, well then
that is a misnomer.
Hang on a second. I've got probably, in the time we've been talking, probably 20 different emails saying they can't issue a warrant, but I got it on. But I got calls from collection agencies, and it was on my credit report. So
you have every legal right to have that removed from your credit report by citing that very law.
Okay, that's you must be an attorney, because
no, sir, actually not even close to it, sir.
Okay, because you have every legal right to have that removed from your credit report. That's a point of contention that you're going to have to argue with somebody, primarily a collection agency. Or the credit bureau.
The credit bureau, Okay, the fact that they are reporting your unpaid civil violation to a credit bureau in and of itself is against the law.
Okay, well, that may be, and you may have every legal standing to try and get that removed, but if it's already on there, it's already on there. Now you've got a bigger problem than running a red light camera.
You go after the entity that reported it to begin with.
That's my point. That's my point. So you've turned this into a bad episode of Perry Mason over a $75 ticket.
Okay, now let's talk about that for a second. On the $75 so-called civil violation, people don't understand. Most people don't understand that there's civil law and there's criminal law. And what these red light camera tickets are doing is they have literally decriminalized a criminal act. The act of running a red light is supposedly a criminal act, meaning a moving violation. And so what they've done is they've turned this into a civil violation, no more important than a parking ticket.
Well, that's not.
Frankly, if you have
wait a second. That's not true. This is running a red light camera or getting a red light camera ticket is a bit more important than a parking ticket from a meter that's expired.
My point is it's a civil violation and not a criminal violation, and they cannot arrest you for an unpaid civil violation.
Okay, so your point at the okay, hang on just a second, I got to step aside. Your point when we wrap all this up, your message is what? Just ignore the red light ticket?
I'm saying that the entire system is unconstitutional. Number one,
it isn't unconstitutional. It's been held as constitutional by the 7th U.S. Court of Appeals. And as far as the constitutionality on privacy, that's been upheld as well by other courts. I mean, simply saying something doesn't make it so. I can sit here. I mean, there's a good argument that's made on the web. You don't have to pay taxes because it wasn't ever so. Okay, try that. And then call me from prison. Anybody can say anything about, it doesn't go on your credit report. Well, yes, it does. Well, you have every right to have it removed. Well, yes, you do. Here's the bottom line. Just slow down. Am I oversimplifying this, Lee? I don't think so.
Not at all.
It's just, and by the way, I do appreciate, Kelly, your information, but the longer we talk, the better you make my point. It's just don't get it in the first place. And if you do get it, either pay it or if you feel you're innocent, contest it. You don't have to go to court. You can do it by phone, email, or letter, snail mail. The administrative judge takes a look at it. And it just seems to me that people, I don't want this. I don't want anybody watching me run a red light. Well, I feel the same way. I'm right there with you. I'm not a perfect driver. But at the end of the day, if it's saving a life or two, if it's stopping people from running red lights, look it up, red light cameras. You'll get page after page after page after page after page of how to beat red light tickets. Most of them go back to law firms. But how do you beat that red light ticket? Well, it doesn't go on your driving record. They don't send a warrant out for you. If you don't pay it, they turn it over to a collection agency. And whether you agree or whether you say it's legal or not legal, at the end of the day, you're going to fight somebody. If you fail to pay your ticket, the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles or your local county assessor collector can legally refuse to register your vehicle. Now, you can fight that if you want. The vehicle that was in the red light ticket, it's known as the scofflaw block. If you try to renew online directly through the DMV, your registration will be blocked. If you go to the county assessor collector office in person, hey, you may luck out. It's up to each county to decide whether to enforce the scofflaw block or not. Personally, I don't like that. Should be uniform everywhere. Shouldn't be whether you happen to get somebody that's in a good mood that day.
This is the news and talk of Texas. Now, it's the Rick Roberts Show on 820 AM, 99.5 FM, HD2, News Talk 820 WBAP.
Well, I know there's got to be a few 100 million more like me, just trying to keep it free. Yeah.
Rick Roberts starts right now.
Here we go. All right. Man, Lee, I am going to be so careful leaving the studio. Are there any red light cameras around here that you're aware of? I don't think there are there?
I'm not for sure.
I don't know.
But you're due now.
I'm due now.
Mm-hmm.
See, I talked about it. So, all right. This is going to be uncomfortable for some people. Do you remember Dylan Roof? Remember that name?
I do.
Walked into a church, killed 9 black worshipers in Charleston, South Carolina. That seems like yesterday, but it was 2015. His sister was arrested at school for carrying weapons and marijuana while her fellow students participated in the National Walkout Day yesterday, in protest of gun violence and all of that. She also went on Snapchat and social media, and she said, "You're walking out for the allowed time of 17 minutes. That's because there were 17 students killed. They are letting you do this. Nothing is going to change." And then some words I can't repeat. "You think it's going to do." She's writing in a post on social media. "I hope it's a trap and you all get shot. We know it's fixing to be nothing, but black people walking out anyway." And I can't repeat that. She's 18 years old. She's a AC Flora high school student. She's facing weapon and drug-related charges after she arrived at school carrying a knife, pepper spray, marijuana. She was later released on a $5,000 bond on condition that she not return to school. Okay, that's smart. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Okay, we're going to let you out of jail, post bond, but don't you go back to the school. That's the condition of your release. Oh, okay, I won't. See, I mean, that kind of stuff drives me nuts. You're already dealing, evidently, with a family that is upside down. Wait a minute. It was condition of your release from jail, post bond, and don't go back to school. The school principal addressed the concerns in a letter to parents. Morgan Roof, her name's Morgan. Her brother, a self-proclaimed white supremacist, was sentenced to death last January, awaiting execution at the Terre Haute Federal Prison. And is that how you pronounce that, Terre Haute or Terre Haute? Indiana. Doesn't matter. That's where he's going to die. Here's the thing. I want to know what's going on with his family. You know, at some point, you know, the same thing in Columbine. You know, in the guy's bedroom, there was a sawed-off portion of a rifle. There was fuse cord, like you use for explosives. How, if you're a parent, if you got a kid at home, how do you not know what's in his bedroom? How do you not know that? And evidently, this family, this Roof family, is something's wrong. You got the kid going in and killing people. Now you got the daughter threatening people on social media and taking knives and dope to school. Well, I want to talk to mom and dad. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm sick and tired of your poor parenting skills playing itself out in schools and other places for that matter. You know, this is insane. Now, people, well, my son's 17 or 18 years old. He's an adult. Does he live at your house? Well, yeah. Well, then you ought to know what's going on. Don't make your problem somebody else's. You know, how much culpability do parents have with these teenagers that lose their minds and go shoot people? You know, whether it's in a school or someplace, or in a church or someplace else. No, I promise you, I knew what was in my son's bedroom for the entire length of time he lived under my roof. And he knew that I knew. It was, simply put, look, yeah, I respect your privacy. I respect you as a young man. You know, we didn't do time out at my house. We did, Dad took time out to spank your butt. That's what we did. But, I mean, if there was a part of a rifle and fuse cord and other stuff in his room, I knew about it. I'd go in and check. I wouldn't wait until he left the house. I'd go in. Hey, what do you got in here? What's going on here? Thankfully, my daughter, same thing. Never a problem. But I would have some inkling, some knowing. If you're a parent and you work at it, you're going to have some knowledge of what's going on with your kid. Now, this one kid goes and kills 9 people, sitting on death row. Now, his sister shows up at school with a knife and marijuana and threatening people on social media. And the parent, I don't know, I can't do nothing with that kid. I swear, I don't. Well, you know what? They're your kid. They're not my problem. I'm just wondering, how much culpability do parents have for their kids when their kids twist off and do something like this? All right, 16 minutes after 4:16 the time. Glad you're along. I've already upset people. I've already upset, well, I can't control my kids. Well, who's supposed to control your kids then? Me? This is not the 1970s anymore, where you're walking down the street and the neighbors tell you what to do. I mean, people are saying, no, I don't have any control over the kids. I don't. Well, if you don't, then why'd you have them in the first place? And I don't mean to be mean-spirited about this, but, the story this morning is that Morgan, the sister of Dylan Roof, Morgan Roof, has been arrested, and for some reason, they let her go on $5,000 bond, 10% cash alternative, $500, with the condition now, young lady, don't you go back to that school. Oh, okay. I won't, even though I've, on social media, said, I hope these people get shot. I hope it's a trap. I brought a knife. I got marijuana. But yeah, you bet. I won't go back to school. I mean, I'm sorry. Isn't it a red flag? Didn't her brother just in cold blood murder 9 people in a church? You think you may just want to hang on for a second and, have somebody talk to the woman, talk to the kid. Well, she's not a kid. She's 18. And again, where are the parents in all this? Your one kid murdered 9 people. Your other kid took a knife and marijuana to school after threatening people on social media. You maybe want to talk to the parents on this deal. I'm sorry. If you've got kids under your roof, don't you feel at least some responsibility for what they're up to? Jesse in South Lake. Jesse, thanks for waiting. How you doing, Jesse?
Hi, thank you. I'm good.
What's going on?
I just wanted to ask about why was it that they singled her out? What kind of knife did she have? I mean,
why did they single her out?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like they singled her out.
They singled her out because she threatened people and said she hoped they got shot on social media.
I think a lot of people talk, a big game on social media.
Are you trying to make excuses for her?
No, definitely not. But I want to know what kind of knife she had. She had pepper spray. I carry pepper spray around with me as well.
Yeah. Have you threatened to kill people?
No, I don't think she threatened to kill people.
Has your brother killed 9 people in cold blood?
That's the thing. Like, even if my brother did kill people I would never want to be singled out just because I felt something was happening in America.
That free to be you and me hug a tree nonsense doesn't work.
I don't think that's what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about...
That's exactly what you're talking about.
White American kids still threaten these days, and we have to protect ourselves.
Oh, I see. Because the black people are coming after you? Is that it?
I don't care what color who's coming. I just feel that she's being singled out because she is who she is.
Well, yeah, and maybe a few red flags to boot, and maybe you ought to do more at this end instead of mopping up brains out of the hallway later. I can't even believe what I'm hearing. Was that for real, Lee? That was a real call. Okay. All right. Yeah. Morgan Roof was singled out because her brother, a white supremacist by his own admission, walked in a church, killed 9 black people while they were worshiping. And then she goes on social media, and I can't repeat some of the stuff that would probably convince you, Jesse, because I have an FCC that I have to maintain. yeah, you need to read the story. And quite honestly, somebody needs to go over and have a one-on-one with these parents, because it doesn't look like they've done a very good job raising kids, and their kids have become other people's problems. Don't you feel some respect? Maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe we just don't do that anymore. No, doesn't matter what my son does. Doesn't matter what he does. I mean, I have no responsibility in anything he does. Or does he live with you? Well, yes. You still don't feel any responsibility? No. Well, how is that? Dylan Klebold, the Columbine shooter. How does that work? How do your kids have that kind of stuff in their bedroom and you don't know anything about it? No, I didn't see that sawed-off rifle barrel. I didn't see that fuse cord. Well, when was the last time you went to his bedroom? When was the last time you asked him about certain things? They said, well, he was acting a little differently. I don't get it. I don't understand how parents can just say, they take all the accolades when their kids do something great, but when their kids do something wrong, I don't know, I can't do anything with that kid. And Jesse, with all due respect, well, they probably singled her out. Well, it wouldn't be profiling, you mean? Yeah, profiling is not such a bad thing when you're dealing with the sister of somebody who just killed 9 people in cold blood, and she brings a knife and marijuana to school after threatening people on social media. Why don't you read it for yourself? I can't say the words on the air. It sounds like the white supremacist doesn't fall too far from the tree, if you catch my drift, Jesse. White students are in jeopardy. What is this? What white students? We have to watch our backs. Why is that? I don't get that. I don't understand that. What do you mean white students are in danger? I don't get that at all. All right. 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. We'll take your call. If you're a parent, do you feel responsible for your kid's action or actions at some point? Now, anything can happen. I get that. But just these people, I can't do anything with them. Well, if you can't do anything with them, what am I supposed to do with them? I raised my kids, and there were plenty of bumps along the road, but we worked it out. I don't get that. I'm sorry. I don't get any of it. All right. 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. We'll take your calls. If you've got kids, do you feel even partially responsible for their actions, especially when they hurt people, kill people? Your call straight ahead in the court of public opinion. All right, 4:33 the time. Glad you're along. This latest story with Dylan Roof's sister, Morgan, threatening, and there's a lot I can't say on the radio because they're vulgarities, and we have a certain standard with the FCC. Her brother, Dylan, walked into a church, blew away 9 people worshiping. A self-described white supremacist. Morgan, his sister, gets arrested yesterday on the national walkout for threatening people on social media, carrying a knife and marijuana to school. Dylan Klebold's family, we had no idea. Well, he was acting a little strange. No, we didn't see the sawed-off rifle barrel on his dresser or the fuse cord. Sandy Hook, the shooter, Adam Lanza, he was obsessed with mass murder. Shot 20 young kids and 6 of their adult caretakers at Sandy Hook Elementary. He was obsessed with mass murders in the run-up to his attack. kept photocopies of newspaper articles on shootings of children dating back to 1891. He had a weird thing going on. I guess his mom didn't talk, and then they did talk. He had a fixation on Columbine. And I'm just saying, all they've talked about is NRA. NRA didn't have any part in any of this. But take a look at the lives of these kids. Well, Sandy Hook, that guy was, 20 years old? He's not a kid. But take a look at their family life. Why'd he murder 26 people, including 20 children? Well, that answer is probably not going to ever be answered, that question. The evidence clearly shows that he planned his actions, and it clearly shows this guy was off his beam for a long time. A computer game, believe it or not, called School Shooting, which features a character controlled by the player who enters a school and shoots kids, was also found at his home. No, but I didn't know. I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. If you're, I don't care how old they are, if they're under your roof, you are obligated to know what's going on. Let's go to David in Arlington. David, thank you for waiting. How you doing, David?
I'm doing well, Rick. How are you?
I'm good, and I'm a bit frustrated with, all the diversion and deflection, and the bottom line is this Morgan, the sister of Dylan Roof, Morgan Roof, isn't that a red flag to somebody?
Yeah, Rick. To me, after the shooting recently, where 17 individuals were their lives were taken, what is in Florida. There were numerous calls in for this young man to be checked out. And I'm telling you, Rick, whenever I heard that there was a bond for this young lady, and I'm sure there probably was, and that's probably protocol, I don't know. But boy, howdy, I'm thinking you do, as you mentioned, go to the parents. Go to the parents heavy and say, look, we've got a problem. We're really, truly concerned that your daughter may very well take into the same path that your son did. My older siblings, they meant the world to me. They still do. I looked up to them. What they did, I wanted to emulate because I wanted that validation and I wanted to be significant in their eyes. Boy, howdy, if there's not a red flag now, there never will be. And if we do, if the authorities don't take action here, and I honestly, to be honest, Rick, I'm out of ignorance. I really don't know what the action needs to be, but to the nth degree, let's take some action so that we can quell this as quickly as we possibly can, because it's almost as an invitation to say, you just don't come back, but we're inviting you at the same time, because it's almost like throwing candy in front of a kid, especially with the mentality of a kid who has a knife, pepper spray, marijuana, whatever it may be that she had on her person at the time. That's insane. That is insane that we would neglect to pursue that individual to see if we can help them and derail them from what may turn into another sad situation.
Yeah, the first call I got on this today was from a young girl saying, well, they singled her out, and that's not fair. Well, yeah. You know what? Your brother just killed 9 people in cold blood, calls himself a white supremacist. You go on social media, most of the stuff I can't say on the air, and it appears she may have some of the same feelings that her brother did. Then you come to school with smoked dope and a knife, and after these threats, what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, really, Rick. Whenever I heard the young lady call in earlier, there was I don't know how to express this verbally, but in my heart, and I'll keep it like that. In my heart, I'm thinking, wow, this is where a lot of the younger generation is. I really literally heard that out of her, the me mentality. And also the thought of gross negligence. If those parents do not pursue their daughter earnestly with fervor, with all everything within their heart to see what's best for her, so that she doesn't go off the rail, then that is gross negligence. And basically that's really my 2 cents. Rick,
no,
I appreciate you.
I think you're right. I look at it this way. Anything can happen. I'll be the first one to admit. Anything can happen with a kid. All right? And I realize that. But if you go back and you look at these shootings and you go back into the personal lives of the shooters, you either had parents that were deaf, dumb, and blind or totally ignoring everything that's going on around them. This kid at Sandy Hook, Adam Lanza. All you had to do was walk around his bedroom and good Lord, it's amazing he hadn't killed 50 people already. Don't the parents have some culpability in this? I'm not raising them. They're not my kids. We all have to live on this same rock together. Shouldn't there be some culpability there? That it just doesn't make sense to me. Tom at Wills Point. Tom, thank you very much. How you doing, Tom?
I'm doing great, Rick. Thanks for taking my call. I'm a first-time caller, but this got me going. We have a family saying when they get a kid getting out of control and go look at them and say, "Well, you got them brand new. They are your responsibility."
Yeah, I kind of feel that same. I'm somebody can get addicted to drugs or alcohol or whatever and do something crazy and hurt somebody or themselves. And, that might be out of the parents' control if it's a one-time thing. But if it's a continued pattern of behavior, don't the parents have some culpability to shut this thing down before it boils over into somebody else's life?
Well, absolutely. And I think that's the whole problem, is that too many families are not a family. Just having dinner together every night makes you bond and want to be around each other and find out what's going on. That's not happening in a lot of families.
Yeah, well, I was very fortunate. I was raised with my grandparents, and we had dinner together every night. My grandmother, I hated it at the time, but she would invite the principal of the elementary school to dinner, and, you did that back then, and the teachers, and she'd get my books for the coming year. There was nothing that I was doing that they weren't aware of. It was just nothing. And of course, it's a different generation, but when I raised my kids, and I'm sure I could have done a better job. Every parent says that, but there was pretty much my daughter. Man, I was so blessed. I can't even count on 2 fingers the time she gave me any problem. My son, the diametric opposite, and I love him to death, but he was a handful. But I strived to make sure he wasn't somebody else's handful. And it just seems like that's no longer the standard in America anymore. 4:42 the time. Good call. I appreciate it, Tom. Don't be a stranger. I'm Rick Roberts. Your calls next. All right, 4:47 the time. Well, Morgan Roof, sister of Dylan Roof, the excuse for human space that walked into a church and killed 9 people while they were worshiping. They were black. He was a self-described white supremacist. His sister, of course, he's sitting on death row awaiting execution in Indiana. His sister, Morgan, was arrested yesterday for some things. If you're really interested, you can Google it, but I can't say most of it on the air. Threatening students. I hope it's a trap. I hope you get shot. And that's about all of her rant that I can say on the air. Also had a knife and some marijuana. She was released on $5,000 bond on the condition she doesn't go back to the school. I'm sorry. Is that ignoring a red flag or what? Let's go to your calls. Let's go to JP in Wiley. JP, thank you for waiting. How you doing?
Hey, fine, Rick. Thanks for taking my call. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. I want to echo what Tom said and the previous caller, too. Boy, talking about a job you have, all you got to do to fire up your listener base is let somebody like Jesse on.
Man, that was, I'm still thinking about that. I even had to check with Lee to make sure that was a for real call.
Well, let me just say that who I feel sorry for in this whole scenario is the young girl's parents, the young girl, because her parent has failed her. I'm not a perfect parent. My dad wasn't a perfect dad, and I'm sure you wouldn't say you're a perfect father either. But I would be the first in line to say that if my son or daughter pulled a gun and went after someone, that I would do time with them because I would have failed them. When I grew up, and I'm from Plano, actually, I live in Wiley, but I grew up in Plano, Texas, and I'm sure you're aware of that community and what that's all about. And even there were no less than a dozen rifles and shotguns in the pickup trucks, in the back windows of pickup trucks, while I was in high school in the parking lot. And yet we didn't have a single incident because we all knew that had we even taken a gun to show our friend, even if it was unloaded, never mind, we knew how to be safe, that our fathers would have taken that gun and we'd been spitting chiclets once they got through with us. Because, and I've done the same with my son. He's been through an NRA safety class. He knows how to handle a gun safely, and I have no doubt that this thought wouldn't come through his mind. However, should it, then it's my responsibility as a parent. And these people in South Carolina, I mean, I don't know them. I don't know all the history of this other than the incident you mentioned about the young man shooting the black worshipers in church. I am aware of the story. But I would have to say that when I started looking in, that these parents have simply passed down their belief systems to their children. And in so doing, they have failed them. Like Tom said, we get these kids brand new, and it's our job to raise them, even though as hard as it is. It's our imprint that we live on. And yes, like you said, with your kids, I know what's in my children's rooms. I have a daughter who lives in who's 18. She's fixing to graduate high school, but I know what's in her room.
And we're losing our connection with you for some reason there, JP. But yeah, it doesn't matter how old your kid is. If they're living under your roof, you know what's in their room. Well, Rick, you just don't trust your kid. No, that's not it. It's not a matter of trust. It's a matter of parental obligation. That's what it is. I mean, any kid can mess up. Any adult can mess up. But if you've got a kid under your roof, you have every right and obligation to make sure you know what's in there. People get on me all the time about, video games aren't causing the problem. Well, the Sandy Hook shooter, he played video game. He was obsessed with mass murder. Kept newspaper articles on shootings of children dating back to 1891. And if you look at his video games, he had one that was called School Shooting, where a character controlled by whoever's playing the game goes in a school and shoots up a bunch of people. We're not talking about Pong or Driver. We're not talking about Mario Brothers here. We're talking about some of the most graphic garbage that you will ever see. Games where you can get a shot of heroin, get in your car, stop on the corner, pick up a hooker, and she, shall I say delicately, pleasures you while you drive. Those are the kind of video games we're talking about. Yeah, bad. So next time somebody says something about a video game, don't go there. Video games aren't. You obviously don't know what kind of video games are out there. Lee, does that make sense? I mean, a steady diet of that kind of stuff is going to have an impression on certain people.
You're right. It does.
I mean, it's not like video games that you and I used to play. It's not like video games I played with my son. We'd play Driver and enjoyed it a lot. We're not talking about that. We're talking about people obsessed with killing videos. And if you don't know, go in your son or daughter's room. You see what kind of videos are in there. Well, what's this about? And if you don't know, ask your son or daughter. Plug this in. I want to see it. Well, that's a violation of their privacy. No, they're under your roof. Their privacy, is dictated by you. Well, they'll never learn. Okay, stop. If I'm going to send you to timeout, the only timeout that I ever remember as a child was my grandfather taking time out of his busy day to tell me to go get a switch. And if it wasn't big enough, he'd go get it himself. All right. Do you see where I'm going with? Do you see my frustration with this? I mean, if you've got kids, you have an obligation to everyone else to manage your kid. You know, well, I can't control them. If you can't control them, you better find somebody that can, an aunt, an uncle, somebody. All right. I hate to go off the air like that. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. I appreciate that greatly. Can the Democrats out-Trump Trump in 2020? They're thinking they can. They've already started the campaign. We'll talk about it tomorrow. I'm Rick Roberts, News Talk 820 WBAP. God's blessings on each and every one of you, whether you agree with me or not. I'm Rick Roberts. See you tomorrow at 2, your afternoon drive on News Talk 820 WBAP.
That's how it was, and everybody else was just like us, soaking in the rain, baking in the sun. Don't quit till the job gets done. That's the only way I know. Don't stop till everything's gone. Straight ahead, never turn around. Don't back up, don't back down. A full throttle, wide open. You get tired and you don't show it. Dig a little deeper when you think you can't dig no more. That's the only way I know. That's the only way I know. That's the only way I know. The only way I know. Oh, get on it one time.